let's talk about the Blazar Remus Anamorphics. These are really cool lenses. I recently have shot with these on a short film, and I honestly was pretty blown away. What makes this lens really interesting is the size factor. I was able to, take this off. This is a small lens. This is a really small lens. I had no problem hooking this guy up to a gimbal and running it on a gimbal. They are all, you know, roughly the same size. The gears are the same, in the same placement, so it's easy to swap them out. And they're almost the same weight, so when you're hooking up a gimbal, it's really not an issue. I didn't run into any issues on the short. It's a really nice lens. When we were shooting the short, we had this like long backtracking shot with the talent walking towards camera, and I was on the gimbal. I shot it, and just looking off the screen, it was just this gorgeous organic look that came from this lens. That's probably the biggest selling point to me, is that it really has a nice softness to it and a organic feel, that is, really beneficial. I shoot on Sony. Sony is really bad about being, or it's not bad, but Sony has this very digital look. And when I shoot shorts and stuff, I'm always trying to soften the image, make it look a little bit more organic. This lens, these lenses really do a great job of helping to do that. I did throw on a one digital diffusion in front of the lens, so there is more diffusion on top of what's already a kind of a soft lens. That being said, I mostly shot the short at a 4, 5, 6, and 8. These lenses are fast. They're 2. The 33, I think, is a 1.8. But in my opinion, that's where the lens really, the characters of the lens start to change. When you shoot at a 4 all the way, 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, all the way up, they look consistent, and it has a consistent look. When you go to 2.8, you have a lot of blooming in the highlights. You go to 2, 1.8, it gets really, really dramatic with that bloom. And in my opinion, it just wasn't my taste, not very good. But the cool part of that, if you want to look at it that way, is that you kind of have an option. If you're in a situation where you want that bloom, you can just crank it up to a 2.8 and you get this highlight bloom. I didn't use that. I wanted it to look a little bit cleaner, a little bit more consistent. Some of the other bad parts that I didn't like, or it's not really a bad part, but what I found I struggle with, is these lenses, which I think are, you know, is a problem when you come to anamorphic lenses, easily glares. So my key is right off to this side. I would be getting a crazy flare. And the flare is not, it's not bad, but it's not always wanted. And so if I'm like moving the lens, I want, okay, we hit the key, we have a nice anamorphic lens flare, and then we get done. But to get done with that lens flare, I would have to move the lens all the way over here before it stops. This is pretty easy if you have a matte box. I just put a matte box on, and I put the mattes in the matte box. So I just made sure I wasn't seeing anything with the matte in there, and that really helped. There was one situation where I was getting double reflections, and we were flying in a French flag, and we're flagging stuff just because we had this push out, and the key was hard key behind, and then a light on top, and we just had this nasty little flare. And it wasn't a like nice flare, it was just weird pinpoint flare that was hitting the lens. Is not all on this lens. It's, I think, a combination of this lens, the ND filter, and the diffusion, and just a lot of planes of glass. You're going to run into that issue. But for the most part, I didn't have a big problem with that. Another interesting part of the lens is, so I was shooting on a Sony FX3 and using the full sensor, so you get really interesting barrel distortion when you move, to the point that I personally don't like it. It's a little distracting. You can see the whole image kind of curve around. It can be a little disorienting. We were shooting in some hallways, so it can feel claustrophobic. Wasn't great for the story I was telling, but it's really interesting. You could use it as a cool story point. That being said, because I'm shooting on the FX3 and the sensor, my final product is going to be a 2:3:9:1. So I'm chopping off like 6% to the right, 6% to the left, cutting that image off. So a lot of that barrel distortion that you'll see, I don't have to worry about because it will be cut off. Where I would use this lens is if I had an open gate camera and I can shoot, 6, 8K, that way I crop in when I don't want the barrel distortion, but when I do want it, I just use that full resolution of the sensor. So as long as you are in a situation like that, it really doesn't bother me because it's another tool, another interesting thing to use with the lens. If you're looking to shoot anamorphic, this is a great intro into it. It's cheap, it looks great. I would just, have those caveats of know that if you're shooting wide open, it's going to have some crazy blooms in the highlights. If that's what you want, it's great. If not, just shoot at 4, which is fine. Everything doesn't have to be super shallow focus. Work more on your lighting, work more on set design, so you can shoot at 4 and you don't have to have everything just falling off into, nothing. I think it's way more interesting to see things than not see them. It's great to have a 2.8 in your back pocket if you don't have the lighting, you're chasing light. But, just know with this lens, you can't do that without changing the image. Another thing is you're going to get flares. There's good flares, there's bad flares. Just have the equipment to control those flares and you'll be golden. I would definitely recommend getting a set, renting a set, trying these out. I like them so much that I've got another short coming up this year and I'm absolutely using this. I can't wait to use them. I think they're going to be so much fun and they're going to give a really cool quality to the short. So, they're just another tool in your tool belt, and for the price point, it's really good. It's great. I would definitely recommend it. So if you have shot on them, let me know what you think. If you're interested in using them, go to your rental house, go try to test them out. If you have any questions, you can always hit me up. Comment below. Let me know what you think. If you have questions specifically that I didn't answer in this, go ahead, do it. Hit that like, hit the subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I am a working DP and I love this stuff. I am no expert, but I love talking about gear. I love talking about movies. I love talking about lighting. So if you're interested in that, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Yeah, and I'll catch you guys later.